All right, Nick, let's talk about the Texas Longhorns narrowly escaped the jaws of defeat, making their way out of a tough Kansas State team. But I think there is good news on the horizon for the Longhorns, especially at the quarterback position, the most important position in all of college football. We have an article that is going to, give some Texas Longhorns fans a little bit of hope coming into TCU this coming weekend. Let's get on into it and we'll talk about it on the other side. This, of course, is from Longhorns country. It says Texas Longhorns quarterback Quinn Ewers has been sidelined for the past few weeks due to an injury he suffered in his throwing shoulder in the 31-24 win over Houston on October 21st. However, the Athletic's Bruce Feldman is reporting that Ewers' return is on the horizon. Feldman reported for Fox from the sideline at DKR before Saturday's Texas vs. K-State game that there's optimism for Ewers' return against TCU on November 11th. Feldman said he did throw on Thursday, and we were told they're optimistic that he could return as early as next week at TCU. So, Nick, this is great news for the Longhorns. Ewers practicing limited capacity, getting some throwing reps in, looking good and potentially good enough to start against TCU this weekend. I think it could be absolutely huge for the Longhorns because Malik Murphy, quite frankly, has been a little bit disappointing in his two starts against BYU and Kansas State. There's a little bit to be desired there. Quinn Ewers is the guy they need on the field to continue the charge to the Big 12 championship game. But Nick, I want to ask your thoughts on this before we get there. Texas fans, let us know in the comments below. Somewhat of an in-state rivalry versus TCU. Let us know what you think the final score to this game will be in the comment section below. But Nick, what are your thoughts on the possibility of Quinn Ewers coming back for Texas?
Yeah, it's absolutely monumental, right? Because we're seeing the Texas team at full strength with Ewers healthy, ready to go. They went down to Tuscaloosa. Excuse me, and beat handily an Alabama team that we all know, looking at them now, has not lost since. This is a very, very good Alabama team that Texas beat with Ewers, right? And look, Murphy's a young kid. He's got a lot of great physical tools. But watching him play against Kansas State, it was clear that this guy's lacking consistency. He doesn't protect the football as much as he should. He made a lot of, I don't know if it was mental mistakes or any kind of weird situational stuff, but down the stretch, he wasn't as good as they needed him to be. Fortunately, their defense came up big in overtime and they got the big win. So that's the key thing for Texas. They were able to avoid disaster with Murphy starting with Ewers out. But the reality is, with Murphy and frankly any other young quarterback, throw Arch Manning in there too, if he was the starter, this Texas team is a completely different strategy, right? You're trying to maybe win a few games and develop your guy, for the future. With Ewers, they're a national title contending team because right now they are the best team in the Big 12. We saw Oklahoma's fallen off since beating Texas. It's clear that Sooners victory over Texas, that was the Sooners Super Bowl. That was their national title. Texas has longer and bigger aspirations, but they can only get there when Ewers is healthy. I think he's the guy that unlocks this offense because we know their running game is spectacular. We know a lot of their big play receivers. Mitchell looks like to be one of the better players in college football. We talked about him before the season, all the big plays he could potentially make from the wide receiver position. So I think getting Ewers back and in time for this sort of playoff push, right, as they get ready for the Big 12 championship game, potentially against TCU as they start to get mentally focused for that, and then to get into the college football playoff as well. I think this is the big thing. If Ewers is back and is 100%, Texas is a national title contender. That's why I really like to see the fact that he's actually really close to returning.
Yeah, Nick. And I think, like you said, this is going to be huge. Malik Murphy kind of just isn't there yet. It could be great in the future, not there yet. But Quinn Ewers, like you said, makes this a team that can contend right now. And you want him back. And I think the timing is right. Getting him back right now in this last stretch of 3 games before the inevitable Big 12 title game, I think this is a really great time coming against TCU. They're a team that, isn't the same luster as they were last year. They're 4-5 right now. They're 2-4 in the conference. They just aren't as good as they used to be. So a good tune-up game for Ewers, as is going into Iowa State, as is finishing off versus Texas Tech. There's not the same caliber of teams they played in the early section of the season when you talk about the Alabamas. Talk about Kansas even now. Talk about Oklahoma and Kansas State this past weekend is also a pretty tough team. So I think Ewers coming in, getting tuned up, getting ready to go for the Big 12 championship game, and then hopefully they win those 3 out. They're looking at knocking on the door of the college football playoff if they win that game. I think this is a really great sign for Texas moving forward. If I'm a Longhorns fan, I am really optimistic that Ewers is coming back and what my chances are at getting into the college football playoff.